What happens when you live an entire month, switching your core philosophy every single week? That was the question I asked myself. And instead of just reading about different ways of living, I decided to embody them, fully. No half measures. For 30 days I lived as 4 different people. 4 mindsets, 4 worldviews, 4 strategies for being human. Stoic, hustler, Zen, hedonist. Each week I surrendered to one of these identities, not just in theory but in practice. And by the end, I came back with something I hadn't expected. Not a favorite, but a deeper sense of what it means to build your own way of living. It started with the Stoic. Stoicism is all about discipline, control, accepting what you cannot change. I filled my notebooks with quotes from Marcus Aurelius. I woke early, structured my days, tracked my reactions. Every impulse, every complaint, every little craving, I watched it instead of feeding it. And at first I felt powerful, like I was finally driving my own life with a steady hand. I wasn't getting swept away by emotions. I didn't lose my temper, didn't dwell on problems. But over time I noticed something else. My calm wasn't always rooted in acceptance. Sometimes it was just tension in disguise. I wasn't feeling less. I was just clenching my way through discomfort, calling it strength. There's a subtle line between self-control and self-suppression. True Stoicism asks you to accept life as it is, not to white-knuckle your way through it. And that kind of surrender is much harder than it looks. Then came week 2, the hustler. No room for reflection now. Just output, goals, systems. My days were carved into blocks of time. Every morning started before sunrise. I read books at double speed. I tracked habits, counted steps, set aggressive targets for work and learning. I got so much done. And yet, I started to feel like a ghost inside my own schedule. When everything becomes a task, even joy starts to feel like a checkbox. I found myself asking constantly, what's the ROI of this moment? If it didn't serve a purpose, it didn't belong. The irony is, I was more productive than ever, but I felt less alive. You are not a machine. No matter how many systems you build, no matter how efficient your routine, if your inner world gets left behind, progress becomes empty. So in week 3 I shifted, radically. Zen. This time there were no goals, just presence. I meditated. I walked slowly. I sat with silence, letting go of trying to get anywhere. For the first few days I felt completely unmoored, like I dropped the steering wheel and was just drifting through time. But slowly, something softer emerged. I started noticing things I'd been too busy to feel. The warmth of sunlight, the weight of breath, the subtle quiet underneath all the noise. It wasn't always comfortable. Sometimes the stillness made me restless. But in that stillness, I realized how much of my life had been spent chasing the next thing. Zen isn't about doing nothing. It's about doing one thing fully, without rushing to be somewhere else. And then, the final week, hedonism. I gave myself permission to follow desire. No plans, no discipline, no productivity apps. I slept in, ate what I craved, watched movies at noon, said yes to whatever sounded fun. For the first 2 days, it felt like freedom. And then, it didn't. Pleasure without direction becomes disorienting. You lose the edge that makes rest feel earned. You forget what you actually want because everything is so immediately available. Joy, when constant, starts to blur into background noise. It taught me that pleasure isn't the opposite of meaning, but it needs contrast. Without friction, it's hard to feel depth. By the end of the month, I felt like I'd lived 4 short lives. Each one had its truths. Each one had its shadows. From Stoicism, I kept the power of pausing, of not reacting immediately, of watching my mind before letting it speak. From Hustle, I took the value of structure, not as a cage, but as a tool to support what matters. From Zen, I held on to presence. The idea that this moment, right here, is not a step towards something better. It is the thing. And from hedonism, I reclaimed joy. The reminder that delight isn't something to earn, it's something to allow. But what surprised me most was how none of them worked fully on their own. And yet, all of them lived somewhere inside me. We're often sold this idea that we have to choose one path, one life strategy, one kind of person to be. But what if life isn't a fixed philosophy, but a custom mosaic? What if your truth isn't in finding the right strategy, but in building your own? A mix, a rhythm, a personal language made from many voices. There is no perfect system, no single way to win at being human. And maybe that's the point. You're not here to fit a mold. You're here to explore, to question, to try things on and let them go, to take what serves you and leave the rest. Life isn't a template. It's a toolkit, a messy, beautiful patchwork of choices and contradictions. So if you feel lost between approaches, between discipline and ease, drive and rest, joy and order, maybe you're not doing it wrong. Maybe you're just starting to craft your own way, and that way doesn't have to make sense to anyone else. It just has to be yours. Honest. Real. Alive.